Okay, with Charlie Spickler, documentary film Rising Tides, feature film played at the Environmental Film Festival. Obviously, a really fascinating film. Charlie, you've made a lot of documentary films to date, correct?
Yeah, for
Four to date. So what how did you choose this particular project to do? Because you have to spend a lot, like almost probably years to kind of put it all together. So you must be very passionate about the project. So what made you want to make this film?
well, being I can to roll it back a little bit. Being a
Yeah,
documentary filmmaker, and I started as a narrative filmmaker
yeah.
for years and years and years, and you just never know. In 2012, we our dog had died, and we were going to get a new dog, so we went to this local animal shelter in Brooklyn, and it's like this grassroots shelter, and we got our dog. But I was so impressed by the grassroots effort in this shelter, I went back the next day and said to the owner, "Hey, we should make a documentary about your place." I never made a documentary before. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. He
Yeah.
was like, "Yeah, sure." So I drove around Brooklyn with him for like 2 years, and we made Rescue Brooklyn, which did really, really well. And then I was like, wow, I really like making documentaries because I get to pretty much myself, I get to do the thing. And as I'm a megalomaniac, you know, doing things mostly myself is the way to go. So once I finished Rescue Brooklyn, I was looking for another documentary, and I have like a book of like different ideas of what might make a
Yeah.
good documentary. And as you go through them, you go, this has no legs. It's not gonna, it's not gonna work. So a friend of mine had been friends with a very famous folk musician, this guy Jack Hardy, who was less famous than he should have been because he used to piss people off a lot. But he started this thing called the Songwriters Exchange in New York, and out of the Songwriters Exchange came like Suzanne Vega and Tracy Chapman and all these amazing people. And he had died. So, and I had not heard of him. And then I heard his music, and it's like this great Celtic folk.
Mhm.
And I said, hey, this would make a good documentary. So I made a documentary about Jack. And I got all these very famous folk musicians to come in and play his music. And that was called Bard of the Village. And that took a number of years to finish because I had like 6 hours worth of material that I had to cut down into like an hour and 40 minutes, which was not easy.
Yeah.
So then, fast forward, I finished that. And like right after the election in 2020, I was trying to figure out something to make, and I had a couple of ideas. None of them were really any good. Um, and my wife said to me, "I'm Jewish. My wife is Unitarian." She said, "Well, why don't you make a movie about like Jews?" I said, "Well, because I don't want to. Jews aren't that interesting." Um, but what I was pissed off at the time was the amount of the sort of Orthodox Jewish community that voted for Trump, and
Yeah.
that she said, "Well, why don't you make a movie about that?"
Oh
So
my God. Like it's so funny that you mentioned that because I think someone should make a movie. You made a movie about that?
yes, it's called
Okay.
Trumpism in the American Jewish Community. I finished it 2 years ago. It's on Amazon. It's on my website,
Okay.
uh, and really, it's relevant right now. Very relevant right now.
Yeah.
Uh, so I made that, and that took like a year. It took me about a year to make. It took like 12 years off my life making that movie.
Because it's even more prominent now. Well, because
Yeah,
I in the stats because like in New York City. Get to your film in a second, but I'm fascinated by this because I live in a Jewish community in Toronto, and it's the first time that they
big Jewish
voted.
community in Toronto. Yeah,
Yeah, and basically, and I'm not. My wife is Jewish. My kids are Jewish, and so basically, it's very prominent in the suburbs of Toronto, and it's the first time ever that they voted conservative, right, in the
yeah,
election.
yeah.
And a lot of people like my generation and younger they're conservative. They're conservative Jews,
I don't
and
get it. I
yeah.
don't get it.
And I
So
told my wife, I go, someone should make a movie about this transition, and you made the movie. But basically, yeah, like because I didn't like. It's so funny that you mentioned that because I was like, someone's got to make a movie about this because
yeah,
it,
I actually did. I go and it was about that, and it was also about the rise of anti-Semitism under the Trump
yeah,
administration.
yeah.
So yeah, that's on Amazon. It's also on my website on the
As the co-president 2 days ago, as this podcast did a Nazi salute. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It doesn't end. It just doesn't end.
it's a brazen no, but it's a brazen move by him because he wants to see what he can get away with, right? So
But that's what they did last time. You had like in my movie, you'll see this guy, what the hell's his name? Richard Spencer,
yeah.
who is a well-known Nazi. You know, he did the whole Hail Trump thing after he
Yeah.
won, you know. So I finished that, and I had a number of things on my list of that I was thinking about making. And then last December, actually just a little over less than a year ago, a little more than a year ago, I was at my in-laws' house in Pennsylvania. We went there over Christmas, and I was reading the New York Times, and there was an article in the New York Times about the Peconic Bay scallops, which were dying before they could be harvested,
Mhm.
which I thought was interesting. I grew up out on Eastern Long Island, so for me it was like this is an interesting story. I went to Peconic Dunes Day Camp. I sent my kids to Peconic Dunes Day Camp out there. I know the area. I had friends whose dads were fishermen. So I did a little bit of a deep dive, and I was like, okay, this could be an interesting documentary because it ties into climate change. And then that sort of sent me down the rabbit hole to wood crabs in Maryland, oysters in Maryland, the bleach coral down in Florida, and um, the lobsters up in Maine, which didn't make it into the movie. I can get into that later. Um, so that kind of just like it started with this little seed, and then it steamrolled into not just the climate change, but the climate deniers, which I thought, which became a large part of the movie
Yeah.
as I started to talk to people, and because you can't have one without the other. You can't have all this, good stuff trying to do it while you have, an entire Republican Party who's telling you that it's not real. Um, so the climate deniers became a large part of the movie. My documentaries tend to have like three, usually three, maybe four paths that converge eventually at the end of the movie. Telling three different stories. I usually have a main story, and then I've got like an ancillary story. Then I get the big story. So the main story were my scallopers out on Long Island,
Yeah.
following that,
The
and
human
then
story.
the
Yeah.
human story,
Yeah.
uh, and then the politics, which was big. I managed to
Yeah.
get really some amazing, senator and congressman. Um, and then there's the sort of the global climate change story,
Yeah.
sort of fits in together. I think I have sort of developed a style now. I think that is my documentary style. I think it started with the Trump movie,
Yeah.
and then sort of, and it just kind of naturally happened. I was actually thinking about getting a different narrator for this movie, to just narrate the movie. And one of my partners, Paul, he was like, "No, again, it's your movie." Because in the Trump movie, I was the narrator also. So, and he was like, "Yeah, it's your movie." And the Trump movie became a very personal movie for me while I was making it, more so than I thought it was going to be, actually. About three-quarters of the way through, I was in Charlottesville, shooting, the area down there, and I
Yeah.
just completely wrecked me. So I realized that it was kind of my journey as well. But I figured the climate change movie was not going to be my journey. But again, it was. So
Well,
at the end
I'm
of the
watching
day,
the Trump movie because it's like I'm very like troubled by it as well,
yeah,
and
I
I'm
think you
really
like it. It's. I try to.
yeah,
Well, actually, I tried to be fair and honest, but
yeah.
when you can't get the other side to talk to you at all, you have to get scholars and stuff. And I got great scholars. The movie I think is quite good.
Well, it perhaps it should be a sequel because obviously since October 11th, October 7th, apologies,
Yeah,
that a lot of Jews have gone over to the other side, right?
yeah,
Because they're yeah,
yeah.
because
I mean, there's a lot of things that'll push you in a different direction.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, so that was me, you know, setting up the story and stuff like I did in Rising Tides. So when we were talking about me and my two producers, Jen and Paul, um, about once I finished shooting and we are talking about the edit, I was like, maybe we won't have a narrator. Maybe we'll just have the story, play out. And Paul's like, that's not going to happen, right? You're going to edit it, and
yeah,
you're going to have to, do what you do, as you're part of the story. And I did the edit, and everybody was like, yeah, you got to do your thing now.
yeah,
Now, luckily, when I do these movies, I shoot like blogs and stuff while I'm on the road. So I have my take on what's going on
Yeah.
to go back to. On Rising Tides, I actually shot most of my narration back in Brooklyn because I had not really, while I was on the road, I kind of knew what I wanted to say, and I did some vlogging, but it didn't really capture what I wanted to say with regards to what was happening in the movie.
Yeah.
So we went out to the the docks over in
Yeah.
um the, over there.
So I got an odd question to ask you. You're doing the voiceover, you're doing you're like you're on camera during the
Yeah,
film. You
yeah,
have a backwards baseball hat. What's the team that you're wearing?
dude, Mets.
The Mets, okay. Because I'm
Always
glad. Like, God, you're not a Yankee fan. You're a Met fan. Okay. Yeah.
my entire life. I am
Yeah.
a Mets fan. I was born in Flushing.
Here, give
My
me one
dad
second.
was a Mets fan.
Look at
My
this.
my dad was a Dodgers fan.
Dude,
Hey, okay.
I got a Mets. I'm a Jays fan. I'm a Blue Jays fan. Like that's my team because I'm from Toronto.
Yeah.
But the Mets are my National League team because I lived in New York for a while and I can't stand the Yankees and I had
Well,
to Aussie
you
team.
guys
Yeah.
just you just got you signed Santander, right?
Sorry.
You just signed Santander to a contract, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So Alonso's not coming to you. I don't know where he's going to go,
He
but
might come to us. He might come to us.
I don't know for the money now. Although I just read this morning that the Mets and they may be talking again. So I don't know.
I think he's going to go to the Mets, but he might go to Toronto.
But we
All right.
got Soto, so that's all that's what I care
Yeah,
about.
that's amazing. Yeah. So they're a fun they're a fun team to watch last year too.
They
The Mets.
have this year. This year was a nice treat for all of us because
Yeah.
at the beginning of the season, I was like, fire the manager,
Yeah.
fire everybody, and I
Yeah.
was wrong. But yeah, I wear my this.
Gotcha.
Oh,
Okay, that's I was curious about that, but I'm glad. Okay, so the film itself. Let's talk about the opening because like you give the audience like a five like talk a macro story, the 5 minute kind of montage in the last I guess the last 20 years since Katrina of climate change that are occurring like the ice falling in the
yeah,
Arctic, the Katrina like the kind of change as we're doing this podcast on January 22nd, 2025 new president. He's declining the. He just got out of the Paris Act, and
because
then there's snow in Texas right now. There's snow in
in
New
Florida,
Louisiana. Yeah,
there's snow in Florida. I just saw.
snow in Florida. And but they're saying that look at that climate change because there's a global warming perception. So they're like saying, look at like climate change doesn't exist because it's snowing right now. There's like
Well,
so
that's like that idiot James Einhoff who threw a snowball at the president of the Congress
yeah
to show us how look, there's a snowball. No such thing as
yeah
global.
yeah. So, but
People would
that's also communication error too, right?
people
There's a
would read a
lot
book.
from if you want to
Yeah,
go left and right, the left has a real problem communicating to people
they
about
do.
what it. Yeah,
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 absolutely they do. They cannot get a message out.
yeah,
And the reason I made the movie,
yeah.
and I really like that in the comments, in the video thing,
The audience
that
feedback video,
that
yeah,
the reason that I made the movie really came across in the reviews because my idea was to take this gigantic, as I say at the beginning of the movie, this
yeah,
gigantic idea of climate change and global warming,
yeah,
and really break it down so that anybody can understand it
yeah,
and they can see how they can make a change themselves. It only, like I said, it only takes one person. And my hope was that that is going to get out there so people, regardless of what this idiot in Washington is doing, if people make a change in their lives, it will get better.
yeah,
Because we all are responsible for what's going on. You don't have to be a government to understand
no,
global warming and climate change and do something about it. And the comments were great. They were like, they mirrored what I hoped people were going to get out of the film. So those were great. You guys doing that is I've never seen that before in a film festival in my life, and it's so cool. You get to hear what literally what people think about your movie, and
yeah,
because maybe sometimes it's not good. I don't know, but all of mine were great.
yeah.
They all were like just reinforced my reason for making documentary films. Really,
That's
um,
amazing. Yeah, it was, and so now you put it on YouTube about a month ago, right?
yeah,
So So before, I guess, like around Christmas time, and now it's got like almost 5,000 views
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
month. So
yeah. We're close to 5,000. I can't believe it. I'm like,
yeah,
and we have 85 likes now, which for me is amazing. That's like, oh my
yeah.
God.
Here, I'll like it right now. I'll give you another like. Boom.
Yay.
And so basically, so then you want people to watch this film. That's the
Oh
number
yeah,
one
yeah.
agenda.
And because I really want this out there, I have a distributor in LA who has distributed my other documentaries, and they're
Okay.
on Amazon, but nobody sees them. Nobody has seen virtually any of those movies. Once I put them up on YouTube,
Yeah.
people can see them. Now, yes, this movie cost me quite a lot of money,
Yeah.
which I'm never going to see back probably. But it was so important for me to get this movie out and try to get it out before the election that I didn't care. So I did not go to my distributor with this one. I wanted to get this out there, grassroots, get it out there so people can see it. And I hope to get into a festival or two. Getting into this festival was like, it was the best. It was like, man, this is an environmental festival. This is the one I really want to get into. So the fact that we won is just, I
Yeah.
was giddy, just dancing around my office.
That's awesome. Well, it's a great film. I like it a lot. So, and I'm glad it's on YouTube. I know that you can't make as much money, right?
I
But
don't
it's
care
like,
about the money. I really don't. To me, this is such an important subject. Like we have an EV car, which I put in the beginning of the movie.
yeah,
The EV car is ours, and actually the hand that is putting the charger into the car is my eldest partner. I needed a hand, so I was like, here, plug this in. And so we shot Z's hand, and then we thank his hand at the end of the movie. Um, and we're getting solar panels for the house. We're just about ready to have them installed.
oh, so you're in Brooklyn.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
There's this great. Let me plug in. There's this great company in Brooklyn called Brooklyn Solar Works,
yeah,
and they do every configuration of solar panel that you can imagine. They work with you, and because we have a ridiculous roof, we're doing a like what's called a carport off the back of the house over the patio.
yeah.
And we're going to be like 95% off the grid in like 2 months.
Wow.
Yeah, they're great. Brooklyn Solar Works. Hey.
Okay, so I want to talk about your film because obviously you got some stock footage and like
Yeah,
obviously the first 5 minutes, and you got
yeah.
a lot of the hearings with Al Gore, and then you
Actually,
interview a lot of the.
that I actually shot live. I was,
Oh, you were
uh,
there.
yeah. That's a funny story. Um, so they were doing the Climate Reality Project event at the Javits, and I didn't know about it because I don't watch TV. And my mother called me. She said, "You know, Al Gore is at," because she knew about the movie. You know, Al Gore is at the Javits.
Yeah,
And I was like, "No." She said, "Well, why don't you look?" So I
yeah,
looked at Climate Reality Project there. So I reached out to the people in charge. I was like, "I'm making this climate change movie. It would be great if I could come and like shoot the thing, because Al's movie is one of the things that made me become a documentary filmmaker." And they're like, "Yeah, please come." So I went, I got a press pass. I was able to shoot everything except his slideshow, the
okay,
famous slideshow. But I shot his Q&A. I was actually in there, I shot it all. The sound is awful, but it had to be in the movie, and there was not much I could do about it.
yeah,
So I figured people will understand that it's live, that it's in a big space,
yeah.
and they'll forgive me for that. But I got such great stuff. I had wanted to talk to him, but they were like, you need like 6 months in advance to set up an interview, and I needed it like tomorrow. So, and I had written 7 questions going in that I wanted to ask him. In that Q&A, he answered all the questions that I wanted to ask him, and consequently, most of it is in the movie. So, in fact, I just wrote them a letter, his group, and they are getting it to him so we can watch it, as I understand.
And
So
then and then I guess you talked about your formula in the beginning, but then you have like interviews with experts like the doctors,
yeah,
and they like let the audience in on what's happening, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah,
and then you like it seems like you like just do it yourself, like you just get the camera and you like the one doctor, he's like I think his name's Charles, he's in his office, and you
yeah,
just start asking him questions.
yeah. That's Dr. Peter Oster.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
exactly. Yeah,
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 sorry. Yeah,
yeah. What I do on all my documentaries is before I even like start and I have this idea, I go online and I look for people that are involved in the story or that are actually out there involved in some way whether it's
Yeah.
activists or professors or congressmen or whatever. And then I make my list of people that I need to talk to before I decide to make the movie. If I can get these people, then it's like, okay, next step, figure out how to make the movie. But if I can't get the people, then there's no movie. So I looked at which like marine biologists were like working on climate change and habitat. And Peter's one of the big ones. He's at University of Connecticut. Um, and everybody that I got was either through somebody else or somebody had reached out. So on this movie, the two superstars were the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. And when I reached out to them, Valerie from there was like, how can we help you? And she hooked me up with lots of people, and they allowed me to shoot interviews in their green building in Annapolis. It's the coolest thing. So two of the interviews were shot there. The other group, the Citizens Climate Lobby, I reached out to them. Flannery Winchester is their national communications officer. And she hooked me up with the group up in Maine because I was going up there anyway to talk about the lobsters. And this guy, Peter Dugas, who is the Maine national chairperson for the Citizens Climate Lobby, he just hooked me up with all kinds of people there. I got Susanna Hancock through Peter, who's also part of the Maine um, Citizens Climate Lobby. And she's a
Yeah.
rock star. She's the one who talked about the plastics guy who wants to, kill his family.
Yeah.
Um, so it's kind of like once you get like a couple of really important people,
Yeah.
getting other people happens. It took me 25 emails to get Ben Cardin, and it took me 15 emails to get to Jared Huffman. Jared Huffman jumped on the chance. He's so big when it comes to the whole climate thing
Yeah.
that when he found out I was making this movie, he was like, "Oh yeah, when can we schedule, to come in?" But I live in Brooklyn, so getting to DC is not easy.
Yeah. Just a
So
train ride away, though. Come on.
yeah, because I got camera crew.
Yeah. Oh,
So
gotcha. Yeah. Yeah.
so I managed to like schedule it. So I went down to Virginia, Southern Virginia, to go on a boat with Rom and his people with the little tiny crabs, and I scheduled the meeting with Huffman on my way back up from Virginia right through DC. So you have to kind of figure some stuff out with your budget and everything to make sure you can get everything you need. But once I know that I've got the people that are going to tell the stories,
Yeah.
then it's golden. The big plus was when I went to the Climate Reality Project, and I had already spoke to Kurt Davies. I reached out to him because I'd seen him like online, like just ripping the fossil fuel industry. He's like the main guy that takes apart the disinformationists and all the lies, and he's actually the one who's doing these lawsuits now. So he jumped right in. He's like, "Yeah, let me know," because he's down in DC. And he got me to Ian Urbina with the Outlaw Ocean Project. So I got Kurt locked up. When I went to the Climate Reality Project,
Yeah.
both uh, Amy Westervelt and Emily Atkin were speaking, and their panel was about disinformation. And I wanted to talk to them. I'd want to talk to them in advance because I knew about them. In fact, they were both there, and then I got to interview both of them in person at the event. Was like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
I got everything I need here. And then I got to interview like the people that who were attending. I got so many interviews that I had to cut down between the people I interviewed at the Climate Reality Project and the people that I interviewed at the Citizens Climate Lobby event
Yeah.
in DC. I really had to just narrow it down to the people that were
Yeah.
saying something that I needed them to say.
So the way you do it, it's almost like a pyramid, meaning that like you got the experts at the top, and like who's more of an expert than Al Gore, I guess, right? Or
Yeah,
more
yeah, no,
famous than Al Gore.
that's right.
I'm sure there's more people who are more experts, but who's more famous than him about climate change? And then so you start, and then all of a sudden but you didn't. It's grounded, and it's got its base is the individual stories, the individual fishermen,
Yeah,
like the human
I got
stories
some.
that most audience members are on the same level with, right? So
Yeah, I
at
got
the same
great
time,
people
you need the experts to explain to us normies, and then you got the fishermen who they're the ones who are
being
who are
affected.
basically being affected the most by climate change, right?
Yep. Getting them was great. That was um that was so serendipitous that it almost didn't happen. So after I read the article in the Times, the guy that was featured in the article, this guy, Mike Tian, um, I reached out to the guy who wrote the article. His name is Christopher Mag, and we've become friendly. We're having dinner next week. So he wrote the article. So I reached out to him and we chatted. And he basically was he was from Ohio originally, and he's been writing for the Times for like 10 years, and he was at the Washington Post, I think, before that. Um, but he went out there. You know, they gave him the story. He went out there for like one day on this guy's boat, and this guy didn't want him on his boat. He really wasn't talkative. He just couldn't wait for him to leave. So we talked, and I was like, well, I grew up out there. Maybe I could, do better.
Yeah.
So and we chatted. He gave me some names to look for. One was the father of the guy in the article. This guy John Tian is supposed to be like the mayor of the island. He's got his own charter boat kind of thing. So I said, I'm gonna just go out and I'm gonna go out to Shelter Island, which is way at the end of Long Island. It sort of sits in between the North Fork and the South Fork. And I mean, I grew up out there, but I never went to Shelter Island. I
Yeah.
rarely went that far east. I thought it was like just some small island. It's not. It's actually quite big because it spans it's a 7-minute ferry ride on either side from the south to the north. So you can see how big it actually is. So I went out to the island and I'm trying to find this guy, John Tian. Supposedly he has like a shack that's like down by the water. And I'm like, and it's early. I wanted to get out there early. So it's like 7 o'clock in the morning. There's nobody around. I'm driving around the island. I can't even find the docks where the boats are. So like there's the boats out front, but the fishing boats are someplace else.
Yeah.
So I'm driving around and it's like 8:30. And I was hungry. So there was this diner, this really cool diner, just like in one of the streets. Actually, I think I put into GPS food. And it's like, yeah, go to this diner here. So I went to the diner, cash only, and I brought cash with me just in case. So I sit down and I order my food, and there's this kid who's like a summer guy. I guess it wasn't summer because it was winter, but he's like a part-time dude who just comes back and forth. And I said to him, I said, "Do you know this guy, John Tian? Oh, no, Mike Tian. Oh no, John Tian. Do you know the father?" He's like,
Yeah.
I'm not really around here. I said, "Well, great. I came all the way out here for nothing." And then he said, "Well, the old guys sitting at the counter there, they might know him. I think they're fishermen." So I'll speak to anybody. So I got
Yeah.
up and walked over to the counter where these guys were sitting. And I said to just in general, the two of them, I said, do you guys know John T? And they're like, yeah. I said, I came out because I wanted to talk to him about, the scallops and everything. He goes, he's in Florida. I was like, oh, excellent. He's in
Yeah.
Florida. Kill me now. So, but the one guy said, he's a scalloper. You want to talk to him? And that was Wayne. And I was like, yeah. And you want to talk? He said, sure. So we walked over to the booth. I had my phone. I didn't even want to take the time to run out and get my camera
Yeah.
because I didn't want to like take a chance of like blowing this.
Yeah.
So we sat down and I held my iPhone like this. And we sat there for almost an hour.
And
And
he just did a random, he just
and
did an interview
he
just
just
randomly.
all of the close-up interviews of him
Yeah.
in the movie, like the one at the beginning and one at the end, were done on my iPhone.
Wow. Okay.
And I have a little microphone that I stick
You
in the
put the
end.
mic, yeah, in your phone. Yeah.
Uh, it's really cool. It goes in the end. It's a Shure microphone,
Yeah.
and it plugs in, and the sound is amazing. So I do my blogging with this, and I just sat there like braced with the phone on the table,
Yeah.
and he just talked. And I had questions to ask, and he answered them all. And it was great. And so I thanked him. I told him I'd let him know about the movie and everything. Finished my breakfast. He told me where the dock was. So I got my camera, the real camera. And I drove down there and I shot some B-roll of the docks and of this boat, which is kind of the shot at the beginning of the movie. Turned out that was Wayne's boat. I didn't know. So I
Yeah.
shot that. And as I was getting ready to head out, he called me. He said, "Do you want to go out on the boat and like, see how we scallop?" I was like, yeah, that would be fantastic. He said, "I'll be right down." So he came, took me out on the boat. We shot all that boat stuff. he literally caught three. We dropped like four dredges, three scallops is what came up,
Yeah.
just to make the point of what's going on out there.
Yeah.
And it was great. And I got had so much. And then I went home and I was like, you know what? He told me about a friend of his who really knows more. And so I said, can I come back out? He said, yeah. So I went back out like two. Actually, I had to go down to. I went up to Maine, shot up in Maine. We'll talk about that. Uh, and came back down. And then I went out, and then he had Steven there at the table. The other guy didn't want to be on camera at first. He's an oysterman, a long
Yeah.
time oysterman. Didn't want to be on camera, but he started talking, and I was like, "If you're going to talk, you're going to be on camera." So that's why he isn't in the camera in the beginning. Um, but then he's on camera, which I learned a lesson. Just shoot everybody and worry about it later. Um, so so then we sat there. Then Wayne's wife came because they go out on the boat together.
Yeah.
And I had like 150 years of scalloping stuff, in front of me. And I had three cameras. I had two cameras on sticks. I had my iPhone, and I just let them talk. And
Mhm.
uh, and that was amazing. And it wound up being, everybody who sees the movie loves them.
Yeah.
There is
No,
stuff
it's like I
there
said,
is
the
stuff
human interest. Yeah.
there is stuff I left out. There's a lot of politics going on in Shelter Island at the moment. Um, you got the summer people, the rich summer people with these
Yeah.
gigantic mansions who are trying to take over like the town council so they can change things. I mean, life is getting very hard.
There's a lot of stories to tell, right? So you
Yeah,
can it's almost like a series. You can make a series out of it, right?
right.
So
So everything that wasn't about the fishing, I cut out.
yeah.
Um, but it's great. They were great. I sent the movie to Wayne. He liked it. Um, and so yeah, that was that. Getting that almost didn't happen. It was so completely random. If I didn't go to breakfast at the same time that Wayne was in there, I would have got nothing. Because I'd also reached out to the Shelter Island Historical Society, and they were supposed to help me. And the woman I spoke to was like on vacation when I went out
Yeah.
there. So
Well,
so
this is randomness, right? So
yeah, so
like
this yeah, everything I do is random.
movie
Everything I
magic. That's what
do,
happens when you make movies, right?
yes,
Like the
happy
random,
accidents. Every happy
it's the
accident.
happy act. The things that when there's the conflict, it usually leads to a good thing, right? So
Yeah, every person that I've met has led to something cool. Like Susanna became like this just amazing story. I went back up a second time. Let's talk about Maine for a second.
yeah,
The reason why there are no lobsters in the movie is because they wouldn't talk to me. Um, I have friends up in Maine, and one of my friends' dad is the doctor on an island called Vinyl Haven.
yeah,
Vinyl Haven is right out in the water in the Gulf of Maine, about an hour north of Portland and about 40 minutes out from the coast. You got to take a ferry there. And it is the largest lobster fishing fleet in Maine. So he was like, you should come because all the lobstermen are here. So we went out while I was up in Maine. I did all my Portland interviews. And we went out, took the ferry, and we went out there. I saw where all the boats were, all the lobster traps and everything. I got a lot of great B-roll of lobster traps and boats. The next morning, I went down to the dock and I saw these two people, young people, probably in their 20s. They were loading pots onto a truck. I was like, hey, score, man, this is going to be great. So I went down, I started talking to them. And the first thing the girl said, she said, where are you from? I said, well, I'm an independent filmmaker.
yeah,
Why are you here? I said, well, and I had already made a trailer for the movie, so I showed them the trailer. And I said, well, I'm making this movie and specifically about, lobsters and what's going on up here. And well, she's like, well, we're not going to talk to you. And I was like, why? And the guy was like, well, but about that article. I know what they were talking about.
yeah,
So I got him to tell me a lot of stuff off the record. It turned out that 2 years earlier, maybe at that point, maybe a year and a half, this woman from Boston, she's a writer, documentarian, she embedded herself with the community for a
yeah,
summer. And her daughter worked on Main Street. It's just a lovely little town.
yeah,
And her daughter worked in the shops. And she went back to Boston and did a hatchet job on the town.
Yeah.
The money grubbing.
I saw where this was going. Yeah.
She
People,
called
they don't trust people
drug
now.
addicts. So
Yeah.
they weren't they didn't trust me. So they weren't going to. I didn't blame them. I actually read the article and I couldn't
Yeah.
believe what this woman wrote based on what I was told there. And
Yeah.
everybody I spoke to was like, yeah, they're not going to talk to you. So
So the,
so I
yeah.
posted a blog. I shot myself up there talking about all this.
Yeah.
And originally it was in the movie. And my wife was like, you have to take that out.
Yeah. It wasn't, yeah. It
It's
didn't serve the
vindictive.
story, right?
It doesn't serve the story.
Yeah.
Um, So I have that piece of Angry Charlie on the on the
Yeah.
docks in Vinyl Haven. But
That's a different movie. That's a whole other movie, right? So,
so consequently, um, there are no lobsters in the movie, even
yeah.
though it's a big part of the story. It was supposed to be lobsters, scallops, crabs, and oysters.
Yeah.
The really lucky thing was I happened to be going down to Florida, and through one person to another person, I met Kaylin Joseph, who's the marine biologist down there, who's the one who's doing all the bleached coral stuff. And she was really wanted to, talk about it. She wanted to be in the movie. So, I wasn't going to bring my camera stuff down. So I brought all my camera stuff. We went, we could not find a place to shoot her interview. So we did it in a park near
Yeah.
Miami. and and but her interview was great. I mean, she was amazing. I tried to get her again to sort of follow up, but we couldn't make it happen in the time I needed to get the movie done. But what you talked about was really important with regards to these coral that are just dying. Um, so each of kind of these little things kind of happened by accident. But I was going back up to Maine, getting Susanna was amazing. So when I went back up the second time, because I wasn't happy with the first interview. It was dark, it was in the wrong place. But there was stuff that she said that I needed to keep. So the initial part of the interview was shorter. Then I got her to come back and we sat in the boathouse where she does crew. And I got the second part of our interview, Anna talking about the plastics guy. We were
Yeah.
driving around. I said, give me something good. Give me something juicy. She said, okay, I have something. It may make people sick, but I got this. So I was like, oh, Susanna, that's going in the movie. That's going at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
When I was watching the movie again and I was editing, I realized that in Peter's last section where he's talking about, are we looking at, is it good or bad? The
Yeah.
one thing he said was about the bad stuff. He said, Susanna can tell you more about that, about the bad stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. So that's why I put the Susanna,
Yeah.
her last interview right after Peter. Um, every time I watch people watch the movie and they hear first, they laugh at the part when she says that he stays at work late,
Yeah.
does not see his kids, and they chuckle, and then the gasps across the room when
Yeah.
she talks about them dying in a car crash are like, yeah, people are out there. They are genuinely evil.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, that's
so
sort of the one of the sub themes of your film too, right? So
yes, yeah.
on,
I'm
on
not
that note,
calling
man,
bullshit. Yeah.
we got to wrap this up, but I
Oh,
appreciate
okay.
your time. And I know we talk forever, but I'm going to watch your other film because I'm keenly aware, interested in it.
Can I
And
can I can I can I plug my next film?
yeah, plug your next film. Go ahead.
Okay, so the next film, what we're working on and we're trying to raise money for right now, it's called The Disposables, and it's about physician suicide, which is rampant in this country. 400 to 500,
Like doctors killing people?
no, themselves.
Oh, really?
Yeah, between 400 and 500 physicians a year commit
Why?
suicide
Well,
because
I
of
guess I thought I'd watch the movie.
the pressure, the insurance companies that they're making their
The
lives miserable,
lawsuits. Yeah. Yeah.
all that stuff. And it's a thing. And so there's
I'm fascinated. That's interesting.
yeah. So right now we are sort of in development. I just spoke to an organization that might be helping us finance this thing. It's not a very big budget, but I really want to get it made. The other thing we're working on it's called Dreams of Flight, and it's about the Aboriginal tribes in Australia
Okay.
and how most people outside Australia don't know that there's like 600 different tribes in Australia, all
Yeah.
with their own language and their own culture.
Yeah.
So the movie is kind of about that. It's kind of about also the invention of the boomerang, which basically, they invented flight thousands of years before anybody else.
Yeah.
And then also about the politics and the land rights that's going on right now. So those are the two things that we have in the fire.
Good thing about Australia is that everybody has to vote, and if they don't vote, they get fined. Something the Americans should do, right?
Yeah,
So
because we might
Canadians as well. So
because we might have won if more people voted. I don't
yeah,
know.
exactly. That's what it's all about. All right, man. Well, I appreciate your time. We'll talk again when you make your next fan. And I guess I could say go Mets. I guess right. Go Soto.
Go Mets. Yeah.
Go Mets. Does that make you a Jets fan then? Are you
No, I'm a Giants fan and a Rangers fan.
in a Rangers? Okay, gotcha. All right.
Because my dad was a Giants fan, a Rangers fan,
All right.
and a Dodgers fan.
Okay.
So
So
yeah,
I'm
we are the abnormal ones.
all right because I'm the Blue Jays and Bills, Buffalo Bills. So
I
my
have a
two.
friend, my college roommate lives up there. He's a big Bills fan.
Yeah. Well, that's my team. So
He's
go
in
Bills this
Rochester.
weekend.
Yeah.
All right, man. Have a
All
good
right.
one. I'll talk to you
Good.
soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.